Hello, I'm Lori Tanner from Femuscripts. Femuscripts is a theatrical production company dedicated to amplifying the voices of women, non-binary, or female-identifying playwrights, because manuscripts are overdone. And I'm really excited to announce the start of our first podcast from the ground up, featuring women who have created unique, groundbreaking experiences in theater in your local area. Today's episode will take us to San Francisco by way of Philly, and also to South Africa, Texas, and even here in Florida. Well, let's just jump to the chase and introduce our very first guest, the great, the one and only Rhodessa Jones. Rhodessa is an actor, a writer, a director, a teacher, is currently a Pew Fellow in Philadelphia. But what we'd like to focus on today is a project she started many years ago called the Medea Project. Rhodessa, would you mind telling us a little bit about what the Medea Project is and what inspired you to create it?
Yes, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me too. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. The Medea Project, Theater for Incarcerated Women, / the HIV Circle, is a theater company, that grew out of my imagination. I was hired by the California Arts Council to go into the jails and teach aerobics. And I was like, what does aerobics have to do with women's lives, women in lockdown?
The authorities thought that aerobics was nice and safe, right?
Yes, exactly. Well, they had seen Jane Fonda. They had no idea. And these women were like, they're women. The inmates were like, what? Aerobics. But I went because I was fascinated. And I was not aware, and we're talking 2020 some years ago. I was not aware of how many women were in jail then. And it was because of the crack epidemic. That women would be, if your man gets busted for dealing drugs and you're home, you're going to be arrested too. And your kids are taken away. Or women who get into these incredible confrontations with their men, with their mates. Sometimes that's bloodshed, that, it's just the rage. People are kind of happy. People thought that people being the persons in place, they thought it was such a brilliant idea to have an aerobics teacher, because that's what it was. I'm like, okay, because women were depressed, they were overweight, and there was so many other reasons. It's like the food is terrible, to not see your children, to you're worried about your court date. But largely it's the small material things that just wreck women when they're in lockdown, like if you don't have any money on your books for commissary, all of this, and commissary is the salt and the sugar, and it reminds us of the outside world, potato chips, of course, hair products, this kind of thing. When I first, the Medea Project itself came out of me being on the 7th floor at the Hall of Justice in San Francisco, where the women are housed. But at any rate, the first day I was on the floor, the first week, and I was hired to go in like 3 days a week and teach aerobics, right? So I go to the back of the 7th floor, and there's a woman sitting there, and she is on the moon. She's like totally zoned out, and she's sitting there staring off in space. And her name was Deborah. And I had this cheery persona. Good morning, I'm Miss Jones, and we're gonna be doing some exercise. And remember, this is not a rehearsal, this is your life. You want to go to the gym with us? And she's just like, and she says, I am waiting for God. She says, only God can judge me. And that's all she would say. And I'm like, whoa. And I find out later that she had smothered her baby what had happened was that they had been partying, like, smoking weed, doing, I mean, just, like we were that generation, right? But all of a sudden, this woman is strung out on cocaine, crack cocaine. And she had had it together, so to speak. She was a chemist, actually, graduated Berkeley, and her man was a bus driver, and they were enjoying their lives, or so they thought. And but then she became extremely addicted and was out in the streets. She was out, and when he was working, she was not at her job, and she was out trying to hustle for more money, for more crack. And when he finds this out, he just wants her gone. It's so classically, myth. He wants her gone. He's forgotten that he contributed to the fact that she was strung out. And now he is saying to her, I want you gone. I want my kid. Bye-bye. And he says, I just want my kid out of this. So she says, okay, but you got to give me a day. And if you think about the myth of Medea, it's like, give me some time. So he leaves, whatever, and she smothers the baby in revenge. And I always cut it back to reality, to this reality, where I had a mother who would say, I brought you in this world, I'll take you out. Now, my dad they weren't fighting over cocaine, but it just kind of set so heavy with me that this was this myth, and this little baby, is like the pawn. It's like, here's your kid, I'm out of here. And so I meet her, and the deputies tell me what has happened. My way back from the gym with other women, I see her being led through the big room, and women are just like, they're going off. They're righteously, they want to beat her up. They're crying. She killed her baby. Let me at this bitch, blah, 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 blah. And she's just on the moon. She's just spacing forward. And it was so mythical that the deputies had to hold these women back who they just want to tear her apart, for killing her child. And I held that for a while, for maybe 2 or 3 months even, before I brought it up again, that what are the ways that we are killing our children? What, you're not with your kids. Drugs have taken precedent over their lives, your lives. How are we not like Medea? Or how can we identify with Deborah? How dare this man say, I want you gone, you're and back to forming this theater company. I always found it was one of the most pressing issues, was getting women to find their own voice, and getting women to forgive themselves, and getting women to understand the way of the world in a lot of ways. A lot of not all of them, but a lot of women are trapped. They have no political recourse. They don't have any political out. They have no idea who they are. And this is a group of girls that are still like, does he love me? Does he not? Does he love me? Does he not? It has been powerful. And out of all of this, I have sculptured something called the Medea Project, Theater for Incarcerated Women / the HIV Circle. And the work is about transformation. And for me, as a director, as a woman, as a feminist, as a womanist, how can I take everything that I know, and use it in these in the very close settings of jail. It took a minute, but the circle is amazing. To everybody sit in a circle and talk about something as simple as, how did you get your name? Who named you? And have them, they kind of like open their eyes like, what? you know, and then I said, but no, think about it. I said, well, next time your mom comes or your grandmother comes or your auntie comes, instead of asking for money for cigarettes or what the DA said, ask them, why are you named what you are named? And they were leaning in. They were like, wow, that's interesting. It's like, because I said it's all about each one of us. You know, it's you know, your name carries this amazing weight, whether you know it or not. And I think I might have started talking about Medea at that point as a literary figure, you know, and I've used classical literature as a way to shape, to give women a form that they can step into that's classical, you know, versus you know, oh, you're just a hoe. A lot of women are, but I told them, I said, even being a hoe, what have you learned? What have you learned about life? What has what has your girl, the girl inside? And another great game that we have, which gets great writing results, is talking to my younger self. You know, like, you know, just trying to warn her about what's coming, you know, and women have written some beautiful dialogues and monologues, and then we trade off the stories and they hear their stories by somebody else and all this. Yeah.
Let me ask you something. I'm curious to know what were some of the biggest obstacles you had in creating this theater company, because I'm sure it wasn't easy, right?
No, it wasn't. And largely, it was the authorities, because they didn't know what they were looking at. Downtown's city jail, the Hall of Justice, they have a great gym, you know, and we would work out and everything, but then we do red light, green light, you know, we do games that children play when they're touching each other and they're grabbing each other, and this stuff freaked out the gatekeepers, you know, like no touching, no hugging. And I'm like, really, you know, because all of a sudden I tapped into the girls that we were, you know, and you know how competitive we were. Red light, green light was an incredible game to play with these women when they remembered it. And double dutch, we did all this stuff and I wanted to just like nudge the memory was what I wanted. But at the same time, the women now, they were they thought they were manipulative. You know, they thought that not so much San Francisco, but when I was in Florida, Ocala, Florida, at a prison, there were bearded women, you know, they worked at all of this. They worked at looking that way. And one woman did an amazing piece about being manipulated by a very straight femme woman. And they talked about how that was the game in the jails. And I'm looking at them like, girls, you step out and what else does a femme get to do but to work somebody over, you know, emotionally. But those stories, and the deputies got so upset that these women were talking about women loving women and women sexing women, that they called in I swear, they called in the squad. They called in the riot guards to stop.
How did you deal with that?
The women were, now they're like, fuck it. That's what the women are like, we're in jail. We can't talk about our real lives, you know? And I'm like, okay, y'all, everybody just kind of bring it down. I was telling these women that we had to stop because the cops were, I mean, they had the dogs. They had all this, and we're in a big cafeteria. This is Florida, so we're like in a big cafeteria with light, with windows all around. I see these fucking people are coming. I'm like, oh my God. And the women that were the deputies, they were outraged that these women were, I think they were more titillated, but they put on this outrage mask of like, no, this homosexuality. Somebody said to me, homosexuality is against the law in Florida. I'm like, what are you talking about? Yeah, well, see, this was like 20 years ago. Yeah. And they were just freaking out. And they couldn't believe that that I was on the side of the women. And I said, you know, I had to get on the table and jump up and down because the women were so pissed off. They were like, well, but bring it, you know, they're going to tell us that we can't. So I said, you know, they want to shut the program down. Then they don't let me in. We don't get to talk. We don't get to hang out. We don't get to laugh. And the cops are now the cops are like around the building, right? And I said, so we got to bring it way down. And then the deputies, the rude boys, I call them, these women who are like guns and all this stuff. And I said, you see what happens here? I said, like they're in jail and they can't talk about their reality. No, I said, no, do you hear what I'm saying? I said, my work is about crafting autobiographical theater. This is amazing that they would trust me and us enough to talk about this concern they have about being used even by women in jail. Mm-hmm. And the deputies were like looking at me, and I said, so we'll stop today. I said, but just remember what I just told you. I said, we're going to quit. We're going to quit for the day. I said, we'll start this up again tomorrow. But I said, you have any idea, like, what happens to these women? I said, think that we're all women. And they're not allowed to talk about what they feel and think. And they were just freaking out. It was wild.
Before you go on, I just wanted to clarify this for our listeners. You actually do performances.
We make performances out of the work, that the conversations that I have a series of questions. I have, they say that on her deathbed, Gertrude Stein, in dying, Alice B. Toklas begged her for the answers. Alice said, Gertrude, before you go, what are the answers? And supposedly Gertrude Stein said, my dear Alice, what are the questions? So I have like 3 different sets of questions. And the first one is just the autobiography, the hidden talents questionnaire. And so out of that comes things like, how did you arrive at this place? What happened to you? Not what the deputies or the judge said, but what happened to you? Like all of us, it's a lot like Goldilocks and the 3 Bears, or the walking along and the big bad wolf shows up. What happened to that girl who left the house and all of a sudden she's caught up in that pop song, Olivia the Slave? And it's all about this girl who meets this guy and becomes a prostitute, a pimp. She meets a pimp. Or one woman was so addicted. And she told us she was in labor, but she couldn't stop smoking. She had twins. One of the babies fell into the toilet, and drowned. I mean, it was just like that kind of stuff. And for people to tell this is amazing,
That's incredible. How do you get a story like that from someone? How do you get them to open up?
Oh, you have to wait you have to find a clearing in the tears. It's like, okay, you gotta, some of this stuff is so horrific that we're gonna cry. And then we gotta stop crying. And then
I wrote that down. You gotta find a clearing in the tears. That's beautiful.
Yeah, because people are just sobbing and they are struggling with shame, but everybody's leaning in and listening. And then, and also the other thing I did early on was that I really encouraged the women from the outside, my multicultural company from outside, to partner with women inside. Mm-hmm. So you'd have somebody that they would have somebody they could lean on a little bit.
So how much of the performances come out of the performer's personal experience?
All the writing is based in it's their stories, and it comes out of the questions. It comes out of the prompts. Everything from how have you broken your own heart? These are really, and those grew in Africa. Those were the women in Africa helped me make. What is it that you know now? And these were questions that they would. God bless these women that have worked with me in the Medea Project, because women, we have this ability, to open it up, let it flower. And when women are willing to agree that it is a sister circle,
Right.
And that's what I think that's what I've kind of honed. You can't be a part of this if you don't recognize yourself and in the stories, or you can't hear a story. I have 15 full evening performances that we've made out of working with incarcerated women. And then some of my favorite stuff is the stuff that we made in Africa, which was Serious Fun, is what it was called, Serious Fun. And the African authorities were much more laid back than the American authorities. And they let me and Idris run amok. We had a ball. The studio was a courtyard inside of the prison. So anybody who wasn't in it could watch our rehearsal processes, and the women dance, especially South Africa, dancing and singing, and it was, so yes, I made plays out of because I wanted the public, I wanted their children, I wanted their families to hear their side of the story. So we made, and Mike Hennessy, the sheriff at that time, what a blessing he was. He got it. And he gave me the authority
San
to
Francisco, or which country?
San Francisco was where it all jumped off. And Mike Hennessy was the sheriff. And he gave me permission to take the women out. We would work for 4 to 6 months inside, build a piece, craft it on the floor, shapes and sounds and choruses. And he said, yes, you may, under guard, take these women out. And we went to the Lorraine Hansberry Theater. We went to Yerba Buena, and it was just like, it was beyond anything I could have imagined. That it was wonderful. And San Francisco.
Is that the only place where you were allowed to take women
Oh
out?
no, it was like, I would just go in Africa. The women were brought into a chapel on the prison grounds, and the public had to be bussed in. The public had to you had to catch a bus in front of the Market Theater in Johannesburg to come out and see the show. Oh no, it was like, and I just kind of told them, I said, well, this is what we do. And they were like, oh, okay. And what was so magical was that their families, I said, because I want their families to hear their stories. I want their children to be in the audience to get this other side of whatever happened to mom, and it worked miraculously. And then I was at the La Thule Museum in Durban with young people who had gotten out of a juvenile situation. And so their families could come in and hear them, do their stuff. That's what I'm hoping I'll get to do here in Philadelphia, so my group can come, the Medea Project can come, and we'll put a show together, and that'll be like my closing chapter here. So that's what I'm doing. Yeah.
And you'll be there for a year, right?
Yeah, so I can go at the end of June.
So your goal for the end of June is to have like a splinter company from yours that's going to be working exclusively in Philadelphia?
No, I used to do that. Now that could happen with the people that I'm interacting with who are from here. And
tell me more about these partnerships, though. I'm really curious about that. What do you?
you just have because it always happens. It always happens that somebody's going to be attracted to you, or you're going to be attracted to somebody. I mean, something that you're drawn to each other, and it's and I think that women have to realize, especially women in lockdown, everybody's not a sexual conquest. And then they lose their minds over men. I've had videographers come in who stumble out of their pale because of the things that women have said to them. Inmates have said to them like that. One man, I said, "What's going on?" He was like, "I don't know." That one woman, and there was this woman had no teeth, and she was like following it. She told him that she was just telling him how she was gonna blow him, and she just went into it, and I could tell the way his face was. She was just on it, and her little head was going. And this guy's like,
So, but you were saying that you were partnering people from outside, like,
people, my company from the community, and going inside. And I would say to them, because I used to always start before other people did. I'd be the first person that they met, the inmates, when I came inside, and then I'd tell them that I was going to bring the company.
okay.
And and the question is, some women will say, "Well, I don't like to write," and I'd say, "Is it that you don't like to write, or you can't write?" I said, "Now, if you can't write, we got a whole bunch of teachers and social workers, and we got folks that will help with that." And then you got the women saying, "Yeah, well, let me see what you got." Because I've got middle school teachers. I've got people that speak several languages. It used to be, and they're all over the country now, but I had this wonderful Japanese woman who was in the company, and all the white men, they were like titillated, like, "Oh, what did she do? Oh, wow, and I said, "No, she's just an exquisite dancer, writer, first generation Japanese in the company. Her aunt married a Black man, and they got thrown out. And this woman's been trying to find her feet ever since, and of course she marries a wonderful Black man too, and has a wonderful child. But this has all happened since then. But it was the whole idea that be ready for someone to help you, just and I don't know, I think it's divine providence, karma, but I would just see women, I see different people talking to different people, and the work would get better. Or you see 3 or 4 people working. And at one point I even had visual artists, I had painters and that kind of stuff. That was fun, for women and I should have done more of that. As I think back now, that have women express themselves with visual arts versus thinking about the script all the time, thinking about the play. Yeah.
Well, things evolve, and they come
Yeah.
into as things change, and you think you have new ideas that you can incorporate into what you're doing. But
Yeah. Or see that, because that was when I first started, that was a couple of, prison art, like the art on envelopes, the drawings and everything. That shit is so real, it's and when I started at the county jail, that was 2 women. They didn't want to really be in the show, but they wanted to interpret, and they wanted to design the papers. And I was like, no, and I wish I had been smarter about that.
well, you could always start that in Philly, I guess, right?
Well, I guess so, but right now they're not letting people in jails here.
Yeah.
Because of the pandemic. Which is like, and the other thing is that I tell them I want to work with women. I don't, and there are just so many facilities for men, and they can't fathom that you would have a choice. I said, no, I want to work with women. I don't, not that I'm putting the guys down, but the guys, I've had some great success in the past with men and women, but I've also had some, oh my God, I've had some incredible faux pas with having men and women both working in the jail. So working together has been a trial, and just because, and women, we're just so out of control. And the men will go along with whatever you think you can get away with. I mean, it's like this one woman, there's the garden crew in San Francisco, and they take care of the gardens out at I can't think of the town now, but where the county jail is, the county jail. And they wear these big blue denim jackets. And then I realized that this one woman had gotten this jacket, and I found out that she was jerking off a guy under the camera,
My goodness.
under the jacket. And then the deputies by this time, they're interested too. And these people, one of the problems with criminality is that you think you're smarter than other people. And the deputies are looking at this shit. And then one deputy calls me in and she says, what I can't think of the woman's name. She says, we gotta check her and we're gonna take her back to the dorm because she was jerking off some guy last Thursday or something. Then she told everybody.
Oh my goodness.
And I had to make the announcement. I said, I'm probably one of those girls that's jerking somebody off under the camera. People like, what? Except for the ones that are guilty. They're just looking down at the floor. But I said, but I damn sure ain't go around telling everybody that I did it. I said, trust me, he's already told all the guys in the dorm that you did it. I said, so now you're gonna do it. And it's like, and this woman I knew exactly who that I was responding to. But I said, don't be no fool. I said, why would you tell? And that became another conundrum to ponder. Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about the impact that the Medea Project has had on some of its participants. Can you address that?
Well, yes, I'm witnessing the growth and the expansion of there's 4 people in the company that are from jail or from the hospital, from the HIV segment. And they're all rising to the occasion and they're showing incredible interest in being teachers. I took Angie and Felicia, they've been with me for more than 20 years, these 2 women, and I met them both in jail. And now I went to Cornell, and they team taught with me. And I'm loving it because they'll be able to, hopefully if I'm a real success, I'll be able to hand this off to ex-offenders, which would be fantastic. It was just women, doing the damn thing. And I'll just be, I'll be a reference or, they can come back to, or I'll come and see what they're doing. But that's the impact that's so amazing with the people that have been with me this long. And then the women with HIV, just like wanting to be a part of the clinic. They're with me. They came out of UC Medical Center, and they are the people who go in and put the Zooms together for all of us, and that's wonderful that they have claimed this as their own. They, it's and that's what it means nothing if not in the end they can't run with it, so and then I tell you, one of the most wonderful, miraculous things that happened was when when the sheriff said, yes, you can take the women out and under guard. And the first show was reality. It was entitled Reality's Just Outside the Window. And the deputies that signed on, they were all like, they were from the gay community. They were really, their other lives, they were actors. They were theater people. So they signed on to be our guardians. They say, it was just like they got it. And and Martha Graham, the choreographer, she said, people from California believe anything is possible. Wow. And I really have experienced that with these people showing up. And I auditioned deputies to be a part of the Medea Project. That was so much fun,
That adds a whole other layer to it.
Oh my God. And the women, that was, what was her name? She was so beautiful. Filipina, little tight body. I forgot what was her name. And I had her, and the auditions slip said, come in wearing your utmost fantastical set, a makeup, I could, what is the most fantastical thing about being a sheriff or a deputy? And it's the glasses, it's the hats, And people came in with these things on, and I said, no, I just want you to walk over there and turn and look at me. And they were so in it. It was just so, we had the best looking crew of deputies. They were all like actors, and it was like this is one of the first shows we do is at Theater Artaud.
Oh, Theater Artaud, yeah.
And and big, big room and everything. And they have these deputies that were like in their full regalia. And people were like, are they real? It was like, and I'm like, yeah, they're real. And also Lee Mocker, who was like top deputy, top, not sheriff, but a deputy. He is the one who said, I have to ask you to design something so they're all on stage all the time. And that was how the Greek chorus came in. That's how I started using those forms, because the women had to be seen at all times.
Right.
And he said, it's not because of their criminality. It's just that if somebody gets word in that audience that somebody's up on that stage that they have a bone with, they want to pick a bone with, we've got to be able to see everything.
Right.
We can't have them being, sideswiped by leaving the stage. So that was really interesting, that the women had to always be on stage or nearby or sitting and watching. And it was wonderful. It was just like, and the deputies were very watchful for the whole room, and the room gets like, oh, they're looking out here at us. But, their job is to protect those women, it's, and that kind of stuff kicked into gear in San Francisco, and even when the sheriff, after the opening night, the sheriff gave us a closing night party, which would mean the women could stay an hour, 2 hours longer before they had to go back to jail, because they all have to go back to jail, on the lock and everything. But he would say they could celebrate themselves. And then there's some sad stories of people that didn't make it, women that, fell off the wagon. One woman who had been with the hospitals and HIV, she was a star patient, and then she joined us. And she was our liaison with the hospital. They were paying her to keep the hours and all this stuff. And then she meets a man, Sean Reynolds, who was my mentor. Sean used to remind me that dick and dope equals death. She said, especially when it's this group of people. And this woman fell so hard for this guy who would let her drive his new car, and she was so happy. And immediately she started keeping secrets, because we find out when the shit hits the fan that he was dealing heroin. Mm-hmm. We didn't know this in the beginning. She was so happy to have a man. And what happened was she was at a concert. Howard Hewlett, or the R&B star who was on stage, invited her up as one of the women, and she was having so much fun that the fool that she came with, he took her purse, he took her coat, and he left the auditorium. Mm. And she was up there dancing, and these women who had been sitting near them saw the whole thing, and they told her, he's gone. And they had to bring her back to San Francisco. And then it just all fell apart, and she fell apart. He didn't mean anything he said. And so she ended up back in her addiction and back out on the street, homeless, and kind of heavy duty. Yeah. But there's some great impacts, and there's some dark stuff that happens, but the work has been pretty rewarding, especially for me, given that, I go so way back with community stuff, and to be able to apply it to incarcerated women, it's been amazing. Yeah.
What kind of reactions did you get from audiences? I'm very curious.
Oh, they would just, they loved it. They were titillated. It was like, and then you have the families of those people on stage who came to see the shows. And again, it's back to Martha Graham's quote, people from California, because people loved the idea of this happening, like coming into the theater, Artaud. And I had it all. There was like the mud women. This is like pre-show stuff. There's like naked women up on the ledge drawing pictures with like a mud. They were supposed to be very ancient. So they were up there, the 3 or 4 of them, and they're naked and they're painting on the walls like prehistoric. And then down on the floor, there's women play. There's 2 women playing basketball inside of a wired fence. So it was like these installations, right? And then there was these 2 women on a Harley, and they're making out on a Harley. And these are like the things that the audience has to walk through to get to the theater, to get, it was wonderful. It was just wonderful. And everybody was like, oh my God, no, she didn't. And there are people like, well, Rodessa's a little, but it just wasn't me. I mean, it was like, but no, they were, and I'm sure there are people that were outraged. I'm sure there are people, but I'm telling you, women were such an amazing drum, because the shows just sold out. We had one weekend, Thursday. The first time it happened was Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and it sold out. Boom. Just the show itself, and even the oh my God, this one man I told, John Kreidler, who was he was like the overall director of the funding, I think, in the Bay Area. He had some high position such as that. And I told him, and he kind of flipped it off because he didn't think it was going to work. He was like, and he said, oh, I just barely got in the last show. You didn't tell me. And I'm looking at him like, yes, I did. I told you.
You just weren't listening, sir.
Yes, exactly. The real world was going, the real world was like, well, you're going to do what? And and it was wild. It was just like, it was so beautifully wild.
So what do you think is, and this might be a hard question to answer, but what do you think the rate is of women who who go through your program and find some measure of success in life after that?
Well, it's before the pandemic, my company had evened out, and that these are women that come back. They get out of jail and they come back to the cultural center and they work with me. Percentage wise, I don't know. I think it used to be more than 50% of the women, but then the sheriff left, Mike Hennessy left. And then you have the badasses who come in, they just want to lock everybody down, and also it's a real stain on American culture, because we have these people in places of authority. They have no idea what art is. If it's not in a movie, they're not gonna be able to honor what you're doing or support what you're doing,
or even understand it, right?
Yes, exactly. Or why would these women, who wants to care? Who cares about these women? It's like that.
Yeah, they're being punished, right?
Exactly. There you go. These are the things that I'm up against a lot. But now I have no idea, with the pandemic being lifted, because we haven't been in the prisons in like 3 years. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it's going to be like. I only know, I'll tell you this, I just know that aging is real. And some days I get up and I go, oh my God, I gotta, and I'm not even home, I'm far from my home. But then I've had a great ride, it's been an interesting life, really, so, and I have to keep remembering that versus just kind of feeling bad that I'm not home. It's and if I go out in the next year or so, I had a great time. I love
Well, it sounds like you're developing an incredible legacy. And if you are able to hand it off to a group of people, if you eventually retire, because, artists never really retire,
I
right?
know, I can't imagine it. I really can't. Yeah, yeah.
But, it sounds like you're creating something that could have some kind of permanent legacy, right?
Yeah, and who knew? I mean, when I started, I just don't I wanted to use my own creative brain to create something that worked, you know, and everything else kind of flowered around it.
So, given the situation with COVID right now in the jails, I know you said you were hoping to work with juveniles
Yeah.
in Philly. So how is that going to work out if they're not letting people into
Well,
correction?
these are the juveniles that the schools have. They have a whole school here for out of hand
An
children.
alternative school.
Yeah, exactly. And
Okay.
they're all like little budding criminals. We're gonna have to, if we can, we want to check it before. But so that's what I'd be dealing with. I wouldn't be going inside, but I'd be dealing with kids, and they say a lot of them are already spoken word artists and dancers, and I truly believe it. I'm at the youth at their best. They literally can fly. It's young people. And they're not even necessarily my real cup of tea. But my God, I want to lean in and hear what I can hear about what they're doing. I don't remember a lot about being a teenager, because I
Mm.
had a baby so young, and all of a sudden I was somebody's mother, so I can be very short about it. But I'm surrounded by lovely women. There's a couple of women who are middle school teachers who work with me, and they love this particular groups of kids, and I'm great. I'm just so grateful for them. I really am. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, well, it's been fabulous talking to you, Rodessa. And I really, really appreciate your being my first guest speaker for this podcast.
I'm honored. I am truly honored. Yes.
And I wish you just a raging success in Philadelphia. I
Thank
know
you.
that you're going to do great, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you, my dear. I'll leave you one of the, the Department of oh my God. And Aegis and I went to South Africa, and the whole Department of Foreign Travel or something. They sent this woman to the jails to talk to the women, and she said to the young women, she said, "Remember, there are dreams waiting to be chased." And I love that image. She said, so get out of here. She said, your dreams are at the gate.
That's
They're ready to be chased. And I always think about that. So I'm hoping that I can see enough of that happening, and I can just hand it off to somebody and say, you're young, go help them chase those dreams. It takes energy to chase dreams. Yeah. But no, it was a lot of fun, and good luck with your work. And let me know how it all turns out. And if you need me, call me. Okay.